You've probably heard the story of Moses and the burning bush 1,000 times. But what if it wasn't just about a historical event? What if it was actually a secret map, a guide to a really profound spiritual journey? That's exactly what we're digging into today. So, we're going to look at this classic story through the eyes of a pretty incredible 17th century mystic, Madame Guyon. For her, this wasn't ancient history, not at all. She saw it as a detailed, symbolic instruction manual for a deep inner path. She called this the Path of Pure Abandonment. And you have to understand, back in 17th century France, this was a super radical idea. It's a journey of total self-surrender, where you completely let go of your own will, your own desires, and she believed the instructions for how to do it were hidden in plain sight, right there in the book of Exodus. Okay, so where does this journey start? It all kicks off with that famous burning bush. But in Guyon's reading, this isn't just some flashy miracle to get Moses' attention. Nope, it's a dense cluster of symbols, and each one has a hidden meaning. And what's so fascinating is how Guyon just takes this one image and completely breaks it down. She sees three distinct parts, and each one holds a really specific meaning for anyone on this spiritual path. So check this out. For Guyon, the fire, well, that's the pure, relentless love of God. The thorns aren't just random sharp branches. They represent the suffering and hardship that spiritual guides often have to endure. And the fact that the bush isn't burning up, that's the big one. It shows that this divine love is eternal. It never gets tired. It never burns out. All right, so Moses sees this incredible vision, and he starts to walk closer. But hold on, before he can get too near, God lays down the first rule of the road. There's a price of entry to this journey. The very first thing God tells him is, take off your shoes. Now, on the surface, that just sounds like a sign of respect, right? But for Madame Guyon, oh, it's so much deeper than that. In her view, the shoes are everything we're attached to in our everyday lives. Our plans, our ambitions, our relationships, our fears, all of it. To step onto this holy ground, to even begin the path of pure abandonment, you have to take off all those other loves and show up completely vulnerable. So Moses has been called, he's taken off his shoes, but he's still thinking like a human, you know? He's thinking practically. So he asks this crucial question, who do I tell people sent me? And the answer he gets, it's one of the most mysterious and profound statements in the entire Bible. God's name isn't a title. It's a statement of pure, unfiltered being. I am that I am. For Guyon, this is it. This is the absolute center of her entire philosophy. It reveals this incredible, stark relationship between God and humanity. And this brings us to her great equation. If God is the great I am, the source of all being, the all, then for us to truly get close to that reality, we have to embrace our own truth. On our own, we are nothing. The journey requires us to completely annihilate our ego to make room for the divine. Now you'd think, after a mind-blowing revelation like that, Moses would be totally on board, right? Well, not exactly. He struggles, he pushes back. And for Guyon, this isn't just a boring historical detail, it's a perfect map of how our own soul, our own ego, fights against total surrender. I mean, just look at this list of excuses. It's the ego in action. Who am I? That's inadequacy. They won't believe me. That's a demand for proof instead of faith. I'm a poor speaker. He's still focused on his own talents. These are all the ways the self tries to stay in control. But it's that very last objection that really crosses a line. So why was please send someone else such a big deal? Because it wasn't just about feeling insecure anymore. It was an active wish. For the first time, Moses expressed a desire that came from his own will, not God's will, even if it sounded humble. And for Guyon, this is the ultimate no-no on the path. To be in a state of pure abandonment means your own will is basically dead. You have no wishes of your own, you just accept the will of the divine. So by expressing this one personal desire, Moses steps right off the path. And the consequence is immediate. The text says God's anger was kindled. And because of this one little act of disloyalty to the path, Moses is given a human helper, his brother Aaron. Now you might think, oh great, he gets some help. But for Guyon, no way. This wasn't a gift, it was a concession to his failure, a sign that he now had to rely on a human tool because he hadn't relied purely on God. So this all leaves us with a final and pretty challenging thought. If Madame Guyon is right, if this ancient story really is a map for an inner journey, It kind of forces us to look in the mirror and ask, what are the shoes we are afraid to take off? What worldly attachments, what personal little wishes are we still clinging to? What's stopping us from stepping onto our own holy ground?
For more spiritual resources, visit lokaken.ai.